So let's start working on these, putting a little more detail on these. I think first of all, I've got them all selected. I think I just want to move them to a new layer. I'll press M and 3. Oh, I missed that one there. M3, and move those all over here, just so we can see them a little better. So first of all, I think let's go ahead and establish where the counters are. Or the countertops, excuse me. I'd like them to be as tall as this, no taller than this. So what I'm going to do for this is duplicate it and hit enter. And then I'm going to tab into edit mode and hit the Z key, and I'm going to grab this and bring it up. And then I'm going to grab this and bring it a little forward. So we kind of get a sense that we've got a countertop there. I'll hit the Z key. All right, so there's our first countertop. Let me go ahead and tab into here and bring this one down just below that, like that. There we go. All right, so that is our first countertop. We can now use this for the other ones. I'll go ahead and duplicate it, and let's go ahead and put the origin in the center of the geometry and move it over here. I'll scale it in the X and get it so it fits in here. I'll hit the period key, and let's also take this one and grab that face and move it down a bit. There we go. Maybe fit this one in here a little bit better. S and X. Okay. Now we can use these countertops for over here as well. I'll grab this, center the origin into the geometry, duplicate it, and move it over here. And let's put this in place. There we go. Let's pull this down, this face down below it, like that. And of course, with this one, we can always grab that face over here and just drag that over. And there we go. All right, now, of course, we're going to need to drop a sink into here, so we'll be cutting out a hole for that, but that's okay. For right now, we've got that countertop in place. Now, as I said, this is the kind of thing I want, this kind of very plain and simple door here on the counters here. So for this, I think what I'm going to do is I needed to decide how many doors we're going to have here. I would say probably 2 pairs. So for the doors, I think I'll grab this once again and duplicate it and pull it out some. And now I will scale this in the Y. Close that up like that. Get it a little bit thinner. And I'll put the origin in the center of the geometry. Scale it in the X. Let's scale it in the Z, or at least what we can do is take this face and bring it down some. So let's go to that side. I'll hit the Control key and 1 to spin it around to the front there. Hit Z and hit 5 so I can kind of see it. Now we're going to want a drawer here, so I'll pull that down. And this will be our first cabinet door right here. Leave a little room for the hinges there. And duplicate this and move it over. There we go. Now, is this going to be wide enough? And now we need a drawer there, don't we? So I'll just take one of these and duplicate it, move it up, scale it in the Z, and then scale it in the X. So there's a drawer for us. I'll duplicate this, Shift D, X, and move it over here. Now it looks to me like way over here, if we look at this, we've got some drawers here. We've got a thin one on top, and they kind of get bigger as they go down. So I'll just grab this, duplicate it, bring it over here, and let's scale it in the X, like so. And then what we can do is duplicate it, Shift D, Z, bring it down, and scale it in the Z just a little bit. and then Shift D, Z, scale it in the Z a little bit more again, and let's see if this one fits in here, and scale that up just a bit more. There we go. So we've got a series of drawers there increasing in size. All right, that looks good. Now for all of these, we don't need the faces behind them, do we? So what I'm going to do is press Shift H and then swing around here and get rid of all of these faces. Now while I'm here, maybe I could actually combine all these together with Control J and then tab into edit mode and just select all of these faces and hit X and delete faces. There we go. Now if we hit Alt H and bring everything back, we take these drawers and cabinets and bring them on back like this. And for over on this side, we're going to want the cabinet doors and the drawers, but here under the sink it looks like it's just all cabinets. So let's see if we can do that. I'm going to grab these and just select these cabinets in one drawer, and I'll press Control plus key on the numpad to expand the selection so we select all of that, and then duplicate and pull those out. Now I'm going to spin it around with RZ180 and then move these over here. Now I think I want to split this out from that side of the room or that side of the kitchen, so I'll hit the P key, choose Separate by Selection, and there we go. I think I might be able to give us another set of doors and drawer right here. So let's move that pivot point into the center of this object. So there's that object. I'll move the origin to the geometry. There it is. I'll hit Shift D and X and move these over just a smidge. And look at that. That's going to fit in there pretty well. That's good. And then I probably want just smaller doors and drawer over here. So let's just duplicate that and move it over. And I might be able just to scale in the X like that. Kind of squeeze that in there. There we go. Now I can take maybe these. Once again, I'll hover over here and hit the L key just to select those. Duplicate those, move them over, hit the P key, separate by selection, and now I can scale these out in the X and up in the Z, but first I need to move that pivot point. I'll tab into object mode and move the pivot point to the geometry. And then let's scale in the X like so, and scale in the Z. There we go. So we're going to have some cabinets a little bigger there. Good, okay. So we have those. The next thing I think we want to do is the cabinets on top. It looks like, of course, we're not going to need drawers up here. That won't be an issue. So once again, I'll tab into edit mode, and these I'll just hit the L key to select, duplicate, move them up. I'll hit that Control 1 key, Z and 5. And now I'll bring these up. I'll separate them by selection. Just select this one. There we go. And we can set that origin. That's good. Okay. So let's scale it up and duplicate it. There we go. Same thing over here. Continue on over here. Duplicate it. Scale it to fit. And for this over here, I think we only need one door here. So let me just grab this, go into edit mode, hover over one, hit the L key, duplicate it, move it over here, hit that P key and separate it out. Now I'm going to select that in object mode, move the origin to the geometry, And now I can scale it out a bit like this. So I just needed one door there, I think. Oh, we're going to need some doors up here above the refrigerator, so I'll duplicate those and move those over here. All right. So we're getting close to having at least the cabinets in the proper place. There we go. I'll select all of these, move them back. And we could probably grab these and bring these over to this other side. I bet they'd fit. In fact, all of these might fit, huh? Let's just go ahead and try it. I'll duplicate and move them all this way. So now we need to spin each one of these around individually. Let me grab this and hit RZ 180. Now we can move that. And each one of these then RZ 180. All right, now it looks like, it's hard to see over here, but it looks like we've got doors for a little pantry and then maybe doors up here on top. I'm just going to have to guess on this. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. I don't think we're going to be over there a whole lot, but let's just take this and duplicate it and let's move it over and try and put it in place here. Let's now think about these handles and the hinges, because we're going to need to make one each of these, just one handle, one hinge, and then duplicate them all around. So I think to create the handle here, I'm going to go to a whole new layer, and I'm going to hit Shift-C to move that cursor to the center of the grid, and I'll create a cube, and we're just going to use a cube to make one of these handles. I'll scale it down a bit, and I think what I'll do is split it down the middle. So I'll press Control R and hover over here, and while that edge is right in the center, I'm just going to hit Enter and then Enter again, and that will ensure that that split it right down the middle. And then if I select these faces here, I'll hit the B key and border select all of those, and X and delete. And then I can add a mirror modifier to this over here in the modifiers panel. I'll go to Add Modifier and Mirror. And now if I mirror it in the Y-axis like that instead of the X, so I'll turn that one off. Now I can begin extruding this out to get the shape of this handle. Now it's a bit, I think it's a bit thinner than this, something like that. And if I begin, say, from this side with the 3 key, I'll hit the 5 key as well. Now I can begin thinking about getting this kind of a shape here. So I'll hit E to extrude and pull out. And because I have the mirror modifier on it, the other side comes along for the ride. So I'll kind of go like this, and then like this, and begin turning this a bit. And extrude this down like that. And maybe turn it a little bit more. Now I'll go ahead and hit E and extrude, and I'll turn this like this, scale it in the Y, and also scale it a bit in the X, like so. No, it doesn't look like it scales out in that axis, so I'll undo that. It just looks like it scales out like that. So, something like that. I'm going to select an edge or two and kind of move these around just a little bit. There we go. So we've got the basic shape here now. I'll go ahead and delete these faces down here. We don't need these. X and faces. And then, let's see, I think that's going to be pretty good. Maybe I'll scale it a bit in the Z, make it a little bit flatter, like that. I think perhaps I'll select these faces here, Alt, click an edge between the faces, and maybe smooth that. Let me try and go to that Shading UVs tab and smooth and see how that works. Yeah, that helps a little bit on that top part. And now I want to just apply that mirror modifier to make it all one piece. Currently it's just half, so if I took that mirror modifier away, or at least turned it off for a minute, you'd see it's only half the object. So I'll just hit apply. I'll tab into object mode, hit apply, and now it's all one piece. There we go. Now I'll bring back the other part of the scene, and let's put our pivot point where it will be most useful. I think it will probably be most useful right in between here. So I'm going to press Shift S and move the cursor to the selected objects, which are those two edges. And then I'm going to move the pivot point, the origin, to the 3D cursor. And there we go. So now as I scale it down, it'll scale at that point. And I can begin moving this over and trying to put it into place. So I'm going to rotate it around the Z, RZ90. And I want to rotate it around the X as well, so RX90. So I'm going to try and get it on this drawer here and see how it looks. That may work out pretty well. Now let's bring back that floor. I'm going to shift click this layer here. I'll press Shift F and the tab key and drop down to the ground, and now I can hit WASD and come around in here. Alright, so now we have our cabinets in. I'm going to duplicate these handles and fill in for the rest of the cabinets. And then in the next video we'll work on dealing with the stove and the refrigerator.